Right, this is fascinating. So this is the actual CIA document pages. Do you want to like read part of it for us? Do you want?
So I guess the overall thing about this is when you see this document used as proof for Tartaria, they only seem to use that small segment. I think it's towards the end. But if you read the entire document, it seems like it's more of a Muslim-based type thing, and the word Tartar still represents it just a type of Muslim. But if you know the way that Russia works is you have these individual regions that sometimes govern themselves, sometimes they're directly related to the Kremlin and the government, sometimes they're autonomous regions. So you have all these different things under the Russian government, and this should be applying to this time period as well because it's when the communists took over. So basically what this document is saying is that during the communist revolution, the reason they were able to take over is they had the support of the Muslims, which was a majority of Russia at the time, which that could tie back to
perfect timing. That's what's the date on the document? I think it's 1957, isn't it? Something.
Yeah, let's see here. I think it is as well. Yeah, June 1957.
Hey, that was good memory, wasn't it?
Good memory. But yeah, if you read some of the stuff here. So, thus read in the part, proclamation issued on 7 December 1917 by the Bolsheviks over the signatures of Lenin and Stalin, addressed to all Muslim toilers of Russia and the East. So this is basically saying, they gave like a declaration to the Muslims saying, you will be able to practice your religion freely. This is what this document ended up, it's very detailed. Like if you want to check it out, I suggest you do, because it doesn't necessarily say anything about a Tartarian. It doesn't say much about Tartaria. It does mention Tartar and stuff like that. I mean, but this could be considered to be a part of.
Yeah, as well, right? What you've got to remember that Tartar, you've got Tatarstan still in Russia, which is where Kazan and stuff is, and there is something called the Circassian or the Circassian genocide, which happened just to the west of Georgia, or basically where Georgia is today. So there was literally, I think 97% of the population during 1860 something, 1870 possibly, were killed by the Russians. So the aggressions against the Tatars is exactly what they're talking about there. The move into these areas of independent Tartary, as well as lesser Tartary like Crimea, and these areas like Georgia and stuff like that used to be Dagestan, Circassia, Tatar regions. So when it talks about these Tatar aggressions, it literally is talking about very recent advances by the Russians to take out these areas. Now, one interesting thing is that the West is not innocent in this, because if you look at the Circassian genocide, you'll see that the Circassians actually sent a message to Queen Victoria asking specifically for British military help, saying we're being murdered. And you know what the British did? They fucking ignored it. They didn't give a shit. They didn't even send aid afterwards. That's how little they cared. They did not help at all. So
that's where the question comes into play, is like, is it because they wanted to avoid war, or is it because it was orchestrated by someone who controls both sides?
Well, the thing is like you say, if it was a war thing, why is it not a prominent thing? You'd think it'd be great anti-Soviet propaganda. This thing here, it's a CIA document that wasn't.
This is anti-Soviet propaganda. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, but when did this? Yeah, but when did this get released? It was in '97. Soviet Union had already shut down by the time this got released.
That's a good point. But I guess the weird thing about this document as well is that when they talk about the Prophet Muhammad, they say peace be upon him. I'm trying to find an example of it, but
oh well, if you want to go into that, mate, right? Even in Britain, you can look up British Arabic coins, okay? King Offa, who was king of Mercia in Britain in about the 9th century AD, you can find his coins, and on these coins it literally says, in Arabic, Allah is the only God. British coins. And now, the official history will tell you that it was to make it easier to trade with Islamic Spain. This guy sat there going, come on everyone, better inscribe the Arabic, Allah is the only God on all our gold, otherwise the Spanish won't take it. Fucking nuts.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. But the similarities between Islam and Christianity and Judaism are just to the point to where the only thing separating the three religions at this point is just media influence. I mean, if you've read all three of the scriptures, you should be able to understand that it's the same exact religion. I mean, in Islam, Jesus is literally the Messiah, like the prophet of Islam.
I think it seems like we've been taught like a swap of where everything comes from. So if you look on those Tartarian maps, it'll tell you that the Christian kingdom of Tenduk was established in like 1209 CAD. So you're looking at Christianity in the Far East, and then at the same time we're finding Arabic coins in all of Europe. Arabic gold coins from all these different periods. Like, for example, you've heard of the Golden Horde. The real reason they call the Golden Horde is because of all the fucking gold. And they say, whenever they find coins, they go, oh, that's just the coins the Golden Horde left here, right? But then you go to Britain, like you're saying, you have a King Offa, British king, who looks decidedly Islamic, I must say. But you've got him using these coins. So what if history's the other way and Christianity didn't come from the Middle East? I mean, sorry, it didn't come from here in the Roman Empire and moved to the Middle East and eastwards. What if it's come from the opposite direction, and that's come from Asia, and Christianity has come from that direction? And in fact, we were Arabic, because so we've got Arabic coins everywhere. We know the Huns have moved into Barbaria and made it Arabic, made it Islamic. We know that Spain, when the Huns got there, made it Islamic. All the evidence is pointing to Europe being Islamic, like only 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, 500.
I don't know much about it, but that's interesting. I'll have to look more into that to give an opinion on it. But at first glance, it's just, I guess the idea
like
that
there was a more global civilization the further back we go is kind of what it looks like.
Potentially, religion played a large role in this. If there was some sort of cooperative worldwide society, maybe that religion played a role. Since it's so similar, they divided it to split people up at some point.
Well, the Bible even says that God split man up and made them talk different languages.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you can see right here in the CIA actual document that a CIA agent allegedly wrote, it says, "It's holy prophet, God bless and keep him." So why? I mean, if this is a private document and no one's Muslim and that's reading it or writing it, why is that in there? That's strange.
Just randomly in the middle, Hail Hydra.
Yeah, it's like it's really strange because that's what Muslims say every time they say the prophet's name. They say peace be upon him afterwards. It's like obligatory. So
yeah, well, this is what I'm trying to tell you, right? What if we've been tricked? Because there is this whole anti-Islamic thing in the West world. What if we've been tricked and we're supposed to be Islamic? Like we've just been fooled.
It's the same religion as Christianity. The only difference is that they say that Muhammad is the final prophet, and Christianity doesn't accept Muhammad, and Judaism doesn't accept. Like they have the differences between the religions is like they're like, oh, we're the last ones. Oh, we're the last ones. It keeps going to this day. You have new religions being formed that say the same stuff. Mormonism is another example of Abrahamic faith, basically.
Yeah, and they claim to have found golden tablets, which it now looks more and more likely with the Crespi collection, the Brewer's Cave, the Illinois Cave, the Inca stones. There's several others as well.
But this document sorry about that. This document is just basically highlighting the end of Islam as the main religion in this area of Russia, because they're even talking about giving zakat, which is basically like a yearly tax for Muslims that they pay to the community back. It's rigorously prohibited by law. So this is like these different areas.
David Jr. will tell you basically that Russia was, like Moscow in particular, was originally Muslim. The mosque comes from Moses. It's quite literally like Moses' door to Moses or something like that. Mosca. And that's where it comes from. So and you look at Russia, look at the buildings in the Kremlin, they're all designed exactly like mosques. So yeah. It does look like originally all these places were Muslim, and Christianity's come in and done a little bit of an inquisition. Oopsie.
Well, if you look at Orthodox Christianity in Russia, they still wear the hijab and everything. It's very similar to Islam. That's what I'm trying to say. Is like the media doesn't really talk about this stuff because they want everyone to be divided. But at the end of the day, like all the religions are basically the same thing. It just depends on if you actually read the text and you follow the text of the book, or if you're listening to your preacher, if you're a Christian, or if you're listening to your rabbi, if you're a Jew, or if you're listening to your imam, if you're a Muslim. Because right here, even it says right here in this document that they outlawed the Hajj, which is one of the main things of being a Muslim. Any Muslim in their life, they're obligated to do the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage to Mecca. And if they can't do it, they can't complete the 5 pillars of Islam. So this seems to me like the Communist Party was directly trying to end Islam, which would have been able to unite against them for whatever reason.
Well, you could extend that and say, what if they've tricked the world into thinking Mecca's in a different place? Nobody's
I agree
going
with
to
you
the
on
right
that.
place.
No,
Yeah,
that's what.
Think about it. In their world, if you're like satanic, you'd be laughing, rubbing your hands. Nobody's getting into heaven. You know.
I agree with you because the entire thing about Mecca doesn't really make sense because it's the black cube. It's Saturn worship. Saturn. They're literally circling around the cube, like the rings of Saturn. Literally the rings of Saturn. And in Islam, it says there's one God only, and any type of association with God is the ultimate sin. So it doesn't make sense that the people who control the religion right now, currently, they are basically. It's possible that, I guess where I'm going with this is it's possible that at the end of World War I, the current version of Islam may have been created around them because it's so contradictory to the Quran itself. So that's kind of deep.
I'm not exactly sure when the dates were. I'll have to double check on this, but there was a guy, an actual British dude, who'd been, I want to say he'd been like in the army, but I might be wrong about this, but he studied Islam and he got his, his PhD and his doctorate, so etc. And he actually went over into the Middle East, changed his name to an Islamic name, and wrote his own translations of the Quran and then started handing them around.
You might have. I was gonna say it could be. I'm not 100% for sure, but I think Lawrence of Arabia had a role to play in the end of it. I don't know exactly what you're referring to though.
This guy's name I can't remember, but all I know is the books were called like. It begins with an H. That's all I know. I'll have to double check.
Is he the guy that went and found Petra?
Possibly. I'm literally.
Yeah, because the guy who discovered Petra. I don't remember his name off the top of my head right now either, but he studied to go undercover as a Muslim. He changed his name just like what you're saying, and he went in so he could get into Petra and document it for the first time. Because they have this whole weird story about Petra where his journals aren't actually public and they just have little pieces of it, but the British are sketchy about stuff like that. But basically, I think that's who you're talking about. I don't remember what his name is either, though. I'm sorry.
But yeah, the main point of what they were saying was that he'd gone in there to add things to Islam, and nowadays people like the Sunnis and the Shiites, they're having arguments because they'll disagree and say no, that part wasn't in the original Quran, and the others will turn around and say, well, no, that part wasn't in the original Quran. But the truth is like neither of them have the original.
That's frustrating about Islam because one of their major tenets is that the Quran's remained completely preserved since it was created, and we have multiple versions of it today. So just stuff like that is what makes me think that what I said before, because it's just nothing makes sense about it.
Well, interestingly, what David said about it was that apparently the original plan was that every year they come back and they meet in Mecca, and what they'd all recite, because they know it off their heads, so they'd all recite the Quran and they'd agree and go, oh yeah, Quran's still the same, good job everyone. And each year by doing that you make sure nobody's added anything, so they all come back, they all do the rehearsal together and they go, yeah, good job everyone, that's exactly how I remember it, great, see you later. And if someone adds it, you cut the head off. So that was one way that's supposed to keep the story the same. But obviously something's gone wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't written down until after the death of the Prophet. There was a battle. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but a lot of the people who had memorized the Quran and that, I guess, died in that battle, and that's when they decided to.
Yeah, when Muhammad's brother was supposed to take over after Muhammad's death. And
no, I'm talking about even after this. So after Muhammad died, that's where the Shiite Sunni split comes from. Is when Muhammad died.
That's what I was talking about.
Ali was his nephew, and he was supposed to. The Shiites say that Ali and Muhammad's family should be the Caliph of Islam, and the Sunnis say that anyone who's righteous could be the Caliph of Islam. So that's the split right there. But then after that, I think it was a second Caliph who ended up writing down the Quran because a lot of people who memorized it had died in some battle. I don't remember the battle off the top of my head, I'm sorry. And that was pretty much how the Quran got written down, and they even admit that over 200 verses have been lost. So it's just because there's a thing called the Hadith in Islam. It's basically the way the Prophet of Islam lived his life. So you have the Quran as number one for Muslims, and you have the Hadith, which is what they basically live their life off of. It tells you how to brush your teeth, it tells you how to take a shower, it tells you literally every single detail about how to live your life. So in the Hadith, it says that over 200 verses of the Quran were lost, and this is in the highest rated Sunnah hadith. So it's just the entire religion is very mysterious compared to world history when you think about the Moorish architecture and everything. I guess that's where we're going with this. Sorry, we're getting way off topic, but
it's good though. It's fascinating stuff, and it's like it's all delving into what actually happened in history and why we're where we are today, and it needs to be done.
But yeah, I don't know. Stuff Beagle, the horse shit thing with archaics. That's hilarious. I don't know. We could probably wrap it up if you want to. I don't really have much else to say about this document. Basically, I just think that it shouldn't be used to prove Tartaria.
Like you say, I'd say arguments for it being true are the fact that obviously there was a Tartaria and the Russians did kind of genocide them all. The arguments against it being true is why isn't this more publicly available knowledge? It was obviously secret for it to be kept under wraps for so long. But if it was anti-Soviet propaganda, why was it released after the Soviet Union fell? So a lot of questions there.
Could have just been for government purposes, I guess. Like, to answer that question, I'm not sure. That's an interesting thought. I didn't even consider that until you said it. So
it might be covering their own backs. I don't know. To say, oh well, we documented. But like,
well, when was the first mention of this Tartaria theory? Was it in the 1990s? Because you have a lot of things that were being brought up in the 90s that were shut down very quickly.
Yeah, after the fall of the Soviet Union, and that a lot of the first I saw was about 10 years ago now, with like Sylvie and Global Vision's stuff on it originally.